What is happening? J Gamer Dude here, and let's talk about Xbox. Because I'm pretty sure a lot of us have kind of, sat down and actually watched the official Xbox podcast in order to get more information about what is going to be happening with the future of Xbox. But I do want to ask everyone sort of in the audience, what did you guys think about that podcast and the way it was presented, as well as the information in between? Because we're going to be going through a bit of a summary thanks to Idle Sloth here on Twitter, or X, or whatever you want to call it. And we're just going to run through pretty much everything that was kind of announced and talked about during this presentation. So effectively, actually, one thing that I should mention is that in my mind, I thought that if we had any questions by the end of this, it would not have been as successful of a podcast. And I do have one question, but I'll get to that kind of like near the end. So pretty much what it comes down to is that Xbox are going to be releasing 4 games on other consoles to grow franchises and reach more players. That the decision was made for the long-term health of Xbox in mind and aiming for a growing platform and successful games. Now, this largely relates to how games cost a lot more to make, and thereby leaving games purely on a single device, that you're not going to be selling as many copies as it took to actually as much money was spent to actually make the game itself. Like, for example, how PlayStation has been releasing games on PC as an example, in order to be able to recuperate more costs from like those games that had released maybe a year or so prior before hitting the PC. But yeah. And those 4 titles are community-driven games and smaller games that have reached their full potential on Xbox and PC. So games that they don't expect will sell any more on Xbox, or that people on Game Pass aren't going to be playing that much more of. And I think when I looked at some of the theories, the community-driven games were along the lines of, if I remember correctly, it was Sea of Thieves and Grounded. And that kind of makes a bit of sense for both of those. And the 2 smaller titles possibly were either going to be Pentiment and Hi-Fi Rush. So if those are the 4 games that are coming across, then sure, Pentiment is a game that was considered to be like a 10 out of 10 amongst quite a lot of people who are very much into that particular genre. And as for Hi-Fi Rush, of course, there was like, a big splash when it dropped. Shadow dropped effectively, and then there was also the idea of Sea of Thieves possibly coming over. Grounded, though, there have been no news of that, but when you consider that it's a community-driven game, sure, you could look at the many multiplayer games that Xbox do have in their stable. They do have stuff, again, like Gears, like Halo, like Forza, but I don't imagine that they would bring those games over because they are too Xbox related. It would be unfortunate if it would be unfortunate on the Xbox side, but great for the rest of us if Gears did come over instead of Grounded. But yeah, these were kind of really safe guesses that I found, or very conservative guesses from the list of like comments that I was scrolling through as I was like watching this whole thing live. So possible games that are coming over are possibly going to be Hi-Fi Rush, Pentiment, Sea of Thieves, and Grounded. That is purely just speculation and guessing right now, which then leads into pretty much the one question that I have is, there are 4 games coming over, and obviously they don't want to announce those games because Phil Spencer did say he wanted the studios to announce what games are going to those other platforms. So that's actually an interesting one. And ideally it's to keep the Xbox business afloat within Microsoft. So it feels like, at least to some extent, they've got some internal targets they need to hit. And in order to hit those targets and continue to make games and continue operating as they do, they kind of need to sell more to recuperate as much cost from development as they can. In saying that, Activision and Blizzard are coming to... So Activision and Blizzard games are coming to Game Pass, starting with Diablo 4 on March the 28th. Interesting. Okay. So it was a matter of time before we did see Activision's games actually coming to Game Pass, and so we do have our first sign of that. Xbox sees an opportunity to utilize other platforms to drive more business value and invest in future iterations or similar games. And that goes back to recuperating costs as much as possible, so that as long as they remain in the positive, they can spend that extra surplus to then make more games and then keep the business flowing and keeping everything afloat. Introducing Xbox franchises to other players on other platforms builds brand value for Xbox. So that is an attempt to try and sneak into other people's platforms and be able to try and get people to lean over into the Xbox space. But we don't really know what the future of the console for what Xbox is. We don't know what that really looks like at the moment. This does not signify that all games will be released on other platforms. It's just a strategic decision for specific titles. So this is, again, going back to similar to what Sony's been doing with PlayStation by putting God of War, Spider-Man, those sorts of exclusives. But those are the big ones as well. So it's interesting how Xbox is putting in the lesser thans when, PlayStation's putting out, the big boys. Granted, it's going into PC and not on Xbox, but, it feels like PC is more the neutral ground across the sort of console war or the platform war. Xbox's focus remains on crossplay, cross-save, and making games accessible to more players on multiple devices. Now, I love this idea. And Phil Spencer did toot his own horn saying that Xbox is currently the only ones doing it, when the idea was originally done successfully by PlayStation through the PS3 and PS Vita. So for certain games, if you had the PS3 or PS4 version, you could also play the Vita version with the exact same save by transferring your save across those games, whether it be something like the original Helldivers or the first game that I took, that I used, which was Knit Underground. It was like KNITT or something like that. It starts with KN, but Knit Underground was the first game I made use of the sort of save transferring between PS3 and Vita, and it was great. I loved using that, transferring saves, and of course, the trophies across both platforms were the exact same list. So if I unlocked 2 or 3 trophies on the PS3, those 3 trophies would be on my Vita list as well, given that I did sync my trophies. But yeah, I digress. Focused on delivering largest technical leap you will have ever seen in a hardware generation. That kind of doesn't really mean anything, only because Xbox doesn't have the games to actually make that technical leap seem significant, notable, or worthy yet. Because they're not releasing those sort of 10 out of 10 bangers like how Sony and Nintendo are effectively, whether it be with, again, the God of Wars or the Mario Odysseys, Breath of the Wild, all of that sort of thing. And that was something that Sarah Bond said, so there was legitimately no reason to even say that, because that doesn't add anything to what's going on. Maybe they're talking about future hardware, but what does that future hardware look like when we don't really know much about it? It's really just a tease, I think, for what's to come. But even then, the question will ultimately come down to where are the games to make all of this really work. And then some exciting stuff is coming out of the hardware that we're going to be sharing this holiday, as well as game libraries and preservation is fundamental, which is probably one of the more important points. The game libraries and preservation is fundamental because people want to keep the library. So if Xbox does go under, the question then becomes, what happens to that person's library? Do they get to keep it? What's the deal there? And that's always been a concern. Even if it is fundamental, it's just interesting to try and take out from that, but what does that truly mean? Again, we won't see Xbox go under anytime soon, but it was just worth kind of thinking about in that regard. Though, with that being said, let me know what you guys think about the presentation, anything that I've said, my theories, my thoughts, and things like that. Obviously, the theories were more about the games coming over, but please comment below and let me know what you guys think. Please like the video if you liked it, and subscribe to the channel. I'm aiming for 200 subs by the end of 2024, and I do want my videos to get out to more people, and hopefully more Xbox fans, because I do want to hear your opinion. I want to know what you guys are thinking, because I can't imagine what it would be like to be on that side of the fence. Sure, I would have been incredibly angry, but like, this presentation didn't really, it didn't feel like it did much to ease the Xbox fan base, besides just saying Activision and Blizzard games are coming to Game Pass. And even then, if you're not an ActiBlizz fan, does that really then matter at all? I don't know, it was just a little something to throw out there. But yeah, with all that said and done, I do upload every day, so I'll see you guys tomorrow.